Good to be here. Good to see some familiar faces. First of all, I just want to start by saying, anytime you're asked to return to a place that you helped build, you had a hand in building.
What if the biggest controversy in the WNBA has nothing to do with what happens during games, but instead revolves around a private conversation that could completely shake an organization? A rumor has exploded across the basketball world claiming the Indiana Fever's president secretly confirmed a shocking resignation tied directly to the Caitlin Clark drama surrounding the franchise. But according to growing speculation, the coach at the center of the storm may not actually be the person everyone believes. And the deeper fans dig into the story, the stranger and more complicated it becomes. Social media has erupted with claims that Stephanie White, one of the most recognizable names in Indiana basketball history, allegedly stepped away because of the pressure and chaos connected to Caitlin Clark's arrival. The rumor spread rapidly through online discussions, fan pages, blogs, and viral videos, growing larger with every repost and reaction. According to the story circulating online, Fever president Allison Barber supposedly referenced the situation during a private conversation, unintentionally fueling speculation that Clark's arrival had already triggered a major internal collapse within the franchise. Fans immediately ran with the narrative, creating thousands of posts treating the rumor as fact and framing Clark as the superstar rookie whose overwhelming presence had already claimed a coaching casualty. On the surface, it sounds exactly like the kind of dramatic sports story that dominates headlines. A respected basketball figure supposedly pushed aside because the attention surrounding a generational rookie became too massive for the organization to manage. Rumors painted a picture of panic inside the Fever organization, suggesting the franchise was struggling under intense pressure and heading toward complete dysfunction. According to these theories, the Caitlin Clark spotlight had become so overwhelming that it was destabilizing leadership itself. The implication was obvious. Clark's influence was being portrayed not just as powerful, but potentially destructive to the organization around her. But as more people started examining the details closely, a major inconsistency appeared that completely shifted the conversation. One simple fact immediately created doubt about the entire story. Stephanie White is not currently the head coach of the Indiana Fever and hasn't held that role in years. The coach actually leading the team during Caitlin Clark's rookie season is Christy Sides. That detail transformed the situation from a straightforward rumor into something much more suspicious. If the story centered around Clark supposedly forcing out her current coach, why was Stephanie White's name attached to it instead? That question led many fans to believe the rumor may not have been accidental misinformation at all. Instead, some began speculating that the use of White's name functioned as a distraction, redirecting public attention away from the real tensions surrounding the franchise's current leadership. Critics now argue that the confusion surrounding Stephanie White may have served as a smokescreen hiding the much more difficult situation unfolding for Christy Sides behind the scenes. Suddenly, the focus shifted away from an old coaching departure and toward the impossible circumstances facing the Fever's actual coaching staff in the present day. The rumor started looking less like a simple mistake and more like a deliberate narrative designed to muddy the waters while pressure inside the organization continued building. To understand why Stephanie White's name carried enough weight to make the rumor believable, it's important to revisit her actual history with the franchise. White remains deeply connected to Indiana basketball culture. An Indiana native and respected basketball figure, she coached the Fever during the 2015 and 2016 seasons and quickly earned admiration throughout the organization. Her tenure included a memorable run to the WNBA Finals in 2015, where Indiana ultimately fell just short against the Minnesota Lynx. Because of that history, White's name still carries enormous emotional significance among Fever fans. That connection is exactly why many people immediately believed the rumor when it started spreading online. It tapped directly into nostalgia, trust, and the emotional history surrounding the franchise. But according to growing speculation, that emotional reaction may have been exactly what allowed the rumor to spread so effectively in the first place. But when the 2016 season ended, Stephanie White officially stepped away from the Indiana Fever. Her exit had nothing to do with internal conflict, player controversy, or pressure from the front office. It was simply a major career decision. White accepted the head coaching position at Vanderbilt University, one of the most respected programs in the SEC, making the move as part of a professional opportunity that had been carefully planned. At that time, Caitlin Clark was still a teenage high school star years away from entering the WNBA spotlight, meaning the idea that White's departure could somehow be connected to Clark is completely impossible from a timeline perspective. The irony becomes even stronger today because White is now thriving as the head coach of the Connecticut Sun, one of the league's most disciplined and successful teams and a direct competitor to the Fever. Her current team is praised for defense, structure, chemistry, and consistency, exactly the qualities many critics argue Indiana has struggled to establish during Clark's rookie season. That reality makes the rumor surrounding White even more bizarre. Not only is it false, but it collapses under basic scrutiny. Yet the fact that her name was pulled into the controversy at all reveals something much deeper about the pressure surrounding the Indiana Fever right now. The organization has become such an intense focal point that fans and commentators are desperately searching for explanations behind every struggle, every awkward moment, and every sign of instability. In many ways, Stephanie White's name has become symbolic of a calmer, more stable era in franchise history. Bringing her into modern speculation creates an emotional comparison that naturally increases criticism toward the Fever's current leadership. But the real tension is not buried in the past. It is happening right now around the current head coach, Christy Sides. According to growing speculation, she has become the true focus of the pressure consuming the organization. What Sides is dealing with has evolved into one of the most difficult situations imaginable for a coach. When she was hired in 2022, the expectation was straightforward though challenging. She was supposed to oversee a patient rebuild for a struggling franchise that had spent years near the bottom of the league. The process was expected to take time and happen largely outside the national spotlight. Then everything changed the moment Indiana won the draft lottery and secured the opportunity to select Caitlin Clark. Overnight, the Fever stopped being a rebuilding team and became the center of the sports world. By drafting arguably the most recognizable and heavily scrutinized female basketball player ever, Christy Sides' role transformed instantly. What was once a long-term rebuilding project suddenly became the management of a global phenomenon under nonstop public attention. Every decision she makes now faces immediate analysis. Lineup changes, substitutions, rotations, timeouts, post-game comments, and even body language are dissected by millions of fans, commentators, and media personalities in real time. The pressure attached to coaching Caitlin Clark extends far beyond basketball strategy. It means operating under a spotlight unlike anything most WNBA coaches have ever experienced. Every defeat now feels amplified into a full-scale disaster. Any rough performance immediately turns into criticism aimed at Christy Sides and her ability to maximize a once-in-a-generation talent like Caitlin Clark. The media is no longer simply reporting on basketball games. The Indiana Fever have effectively become a non-stop reality show followed by millions, and Sides has been cast into the role of the overwhelmed coach trying to control absolute chaos. She is trapped inside an impossible balancing act, expected to manage veteran personalities, develop a superstar rookie, satisfy ownership expectations, calm frustrated fans, and handle unprecedented corporate and media attention all at the same time. Meanwhile, the team continues struggling on the floor. The chemistry often appears awkward and disconnected, while the defense has consistently been criticized for breaking down under pressure. For Sides, there seems to be no winning outcome. If she coaches Clark too aggressively, limits her freedom, or benches her after mistakes, critics accuse her of sabotaging the franchise's future. But if she gives Clark complete control offensively, she is blamed for losing the locker room and failing to build a balanced system. The pressure surrounding her position has become relentless, with criticism coming from every possible direction. According to growing rumors, that non-stop external attention is now creating deep internal fractures that may eventually become impossible to repair. Beyond the scrutiny surrounding the coaching staff, speculation continues building about tension inside the locker room itself. The Indiana Fever roster includes accomplished professionals like former number 1 pick Aaliyah Boston and veteran scorer Kelsey Mitchell, players who carried major responsibilities for the organization before Caitlin Clark arrived. According to critics and insiders, adjusting to the sudden transformation of the franchise has not been easy for everyone involved. Players who were once central figures within the organization now find themselves operating in the background of a media phenomenon centered almost entirely around Clark. On the court, the chemistry frequently looks uncomfortable and unnatural. Offensive possessions break down, players appear uncertain about their roles, and the offense often collapses into difficult isolation situations. The debate surrounding the cause of these struggles has become intense. Some believe natural professional jealousy may exist as veteran players watch a rookie receive unprecedented attention, sponsorships, and praise. Others argue the problem is more basketball-related, stemming from the challenge of integrating a high-usage, ball-dominant star into an already existing team structure. Most likely, the reality is a complicated combination of both factors. According to reports and speculation, there may not be open hostility within the locker room, but there is believed to be underlying frustration. Veteran players reportedly feel overshadowed by the nonstop media obsession surrounding Clark and the widespread narrative that every success or failure belongs entirely to her. These are elite athletes who spent years earning their place in professional basketball, yet many now feel ignored in conversations dominated by one player's celebrity status. That dynamic has created what some describe as a fragile emotional environment inside the organization. If resentment continues building beneath the surface, many believe no coach would realistically be able to fully repair the situation. At the same time, the silence from leadership has only intensified the uncertainty. This brings attention back to Indiana Fever president Allison Barber and the explosive online claim that she somehow confirmed a resignation connected to the Caitlin Clark drama. Publicly, Barber has made no such confirmation. But critics argue her silence throughout the controversy has become part of the problem itself. In professional sports, when rumors spiral out of control and leadership refuses to strongly address them, many fans interpret that silence as evidence of instability behind the scenes. As losses continue piling up and speculation about locker room tension grows louder, the organization's leadership has remained remarkably quiet. There has been no major public defense of Christie's sides, no forceful statement shutting down rumors, and no unified appearance designed to reassure fans that the franchise remains stable. That absence of leadership has fueled even more speculation about uncertainty within the organization. Many observers now believe the front office may simply be waiting to see how events unfold rather than fully committing to its coach publicly. Ironically, critics argue the original rumor about leadership instability may have contained a different kind of truth. By refusing to aggressively address the chaos, the organization has unintentionally confirmed that serious problems exist internally. The silence surrounding the situation has created a vacuum filled entirely by rumors, fear, frustration, and endless online theories. But the Fever's turmoil may not exist in isolation. Many now believe it reflects a much larger conflict spreading across the entire WNBA ever since Caitlin Clark entered the league. According to this growing narrative, Clark has faced unusually intense physical and emotional treatment from opponents almost immediately after turning professional. Incidents like Kennedy Carter's controversial hip check became symbolic moments in a broader debate about how Clark is being treated throughout the league. Critics argue that Clark has experienced levels of physical play, trash talk, and hostility that feel more personal than ordinary rookie initiation. Prominent figures around basketball, including veterans and media personalities, have openly acknowledged that Clark carries a massive target on her back. Some longtime players reportedly resent the overwhelming media attention, endorsement money, and public praise Clark receives, especially when narratives suggest she alone transformed women's basketball overnight. Supporters of Clark believe this resentment has created a league-wide environment where opponents are especially motivated to humble her physically and emotionally. That broader tension only increases pressure on the Fever organization itself. Opposing teams play Indiana with added intensity, Clark faces relentless scrutiny, the team struggles under the spotlight, and the resulting failures create even more stress inside an already unstable environment. The cycle becomes self-sustaining. The Fever are not simply fighting opponents on the schedule. According to this perspective, they are fighting expectations, resentment, media pressure, and the weight of an entire sport undergoing massive cultural change. In the end, the Stephanie White resignation rumor appears to have been little more than a distraction hiding a much more complicated reality. The true story centers on a franchise trapped inside an unprecedented storm. Indiana possesses a generational superstar whose fame attracts both enormous support and intense backlash. They have a head coach placed in an almost impossible position, a locker room struggling to adapt to dramatic change, a front office whose silence fuels uncertainty, and a league wrestling with the consequences of sudden explosive growth. The real danger is not a fabricated resignation from years ago. It is the growing possibility that the entire situation could spiral into a complete organizational implosion if the pressure continues escalating unchecked. The tension surrounding the fever feels ready to explode,